Chapter 17, depreciation. We're going to look at four different types of depreciation. We're going to look at straight line method, the double declining balance method of depreciation, the units of production method of depreciation, and the maker's edition of depreciation. There used to be a sum of the year's digits method of depreciation. Some of those assets may still be on the books because you may have an asset that's like 20 years long or 30 years long. And if they started using the sum of the year's digits method, then they can continue to use that same method of depreciation today. But any new types of assets that are placed into depreciation cannot use the sum of the year's digits method. The most common depreciation method is the straight line method of depreciation. Approximately 80% of most companies use this particular method, and it's quite frankly the easiest method of depreciation to use. It gives you the same amount of depreciation from the beginning year all the way to the ending year of depreciation. One that is growing rapidly was originally called the ACRS, the Accelerated Cost Recovery System, now called the MAKERS, Modified Accelerated Cost Recovery System. And it's been modified multiple times, and it keeps changing year after year after year. But it's becoming more and more popular because it depreciates, it tends to give you more of a depreciation overall. Let's go ahead and first, everything that you have inside of a business, whether it be the where you store your equipment, the building that you store your equipment in, and the equipment inside of your building, whether it be printers and other office equipment such as computers and devices that you use specifically for your business, can be depreciated. Depreciation is an expense that allows you to decrease the overall tax burden that you have in the organization. You can expense it out on your taxes. The only thing that cannot be depreciated is land. That's right, land. One day it has a lot of value. It may have an oil well on it. It's generating millions of dollars a year to whoever owns the mineral rights on that piece of land. But all of a sudden that could go belly up, and now it's worthless, and it sits there empty, and you think, okay, why can't I depreciate land since it has become useless? Well, 10 years after the oil industry went belly up in that particular area, a big shopping development wants to move into that particular area, and now they can generate millions of dollars more as a result of that new shopping development. Or it could turn into a race car track, or it could become a city location where they dispose of trash, or even the most devastating types of situations can turn into something positive. That's why land can never, ever be depreciated. So I have a scenario for the straight line, the double declining balance method, and I believe that those are the only two that I'm thinking of right now. And whenever you're doing the straight line method of depreciation, here is a Sun Solar Power bought a new truck for $14,000. The truck has an estimated useful life of 5 years with a salvage value of $2,000. The salvage value may also be referred to as trade-in value, or it may also be referred to as salvage or trade-in or residual value. We're going to prepare a depreciation schedule using the straight line method first, and then we'll do the double declining balance method. Okay, here it does tell me that the annual rate of depreciation is 20%, but let's pretend that I don't know that. It's a 5-year asset, and it's indicated right there in the useful life of 5 years. Has a useful life of 5 years. Well, just take 1 divided by 5, and that's equal to 20%. So I'm able to record 20% depreciation for all 5 years. Also, another thing about depreciation is, let's take the depreciable amount. I'm going to put DA right here, depreciable amount. Well, it costs $14,000 minus the $2,000 equals $12,000. So the depreciable amount is $12,000 divided by 5 years gives me an annual depreciation of $2,400 each year. Okay, so here I just record $2,400 all the way down. Technically, what that represents is the book value of the asset is $14,000, but we subtract out the $2,000 to give us the depreciable amount. And then we take $12,000 times 0.2 to give us $2,400. But we've already recorded that. We've already calculated that. So what I can do is start with $14,000 right now, and then subtract out $2,400, and then $2,400 minus the $14,000 equals $11,600. Then 11,600 minus 2,400 equals $9,200. 9,200 minus 24 equals $6,800. 68 minus 24 equals 44. 44 minus 24 equals 2,000. What I want you to recognize right here is that the book value in the last year will never, ever, ever go below the cost, below the residual value of $2,000. It will never go below the salvage value of $2,000. Also, the accumulated depreciation, the first year we have $2,400, so we record the amount that we've accumulated so far of $2,400. Then plus 24, again, is equal to 48, plus 24 is equal to 72, plus 24 is equal to 96, plus 24 is equal to 12,000. The 12,000 accumulated depreciation is your cost of $14,000 less your residual value of $2,000, and the accumulated depreciation will not go above the depreciable amount of $12,000. So you have a stopping point right here of $2,000 for the residual value, and your accumulated depreciation will not go greater than the cost less your residual of $12,000, which is your depreciable amount. What do I deduct on my taxes each of those years? $2,400. That's the depreciation expense. Okay, now in the same scenario, SunPower bought a new truck for $14,000, and the truck has an estimated useful life of 5 years, just like we did in the other one. Has a salvage value of $2,000. Prepare a depreciation schedule using the double declining balance method. The annual rate of depreciation is 40%. How do I know that? Okay, let's pretend that that wasn't given. It's a 5-year asset right there. 5 year, so 1 divided by 5 is equal to 20%, and double that, which is 40%. So it's double that of the straight line method, so I'm able to record 40% all the way down for all 5 years. One of the unique things about the double declining balance of depreciation, this particular method does not recognize the residual value in the beginning. It does in the end. See right down here? It will not go lower than the residual value in the end, nor will the accumulated depreciation go greater than the cost less the residual of $12,000. That's a depreciable amount. But the book value does not recognize the residual value in the beginning, only in the ending. So what it does, it takes $14,000 and follow that arrow. 14,000 times 0.4 equals 56. Subtract 56 from 14, and that gives you $8,400. Now, $8,400 times 40%, or 0.4, that equals $3,360. Subtract that from $8,400, and that gives you $5,040. Then take 5040 times 0.4 to give you 2016. Subtract 2016 from 5040 to give you 3024. Okay, now this is where it gets a little bit tacky. 3024 times 0.4 gives you 120960. Okay, I don't know anything's wrong yet. Subtract 120960 from 3024 and that gives you 181440. That goes below the salvage value. So I know I can't use 120960 for the depreciation expense that year. So I just changed that 181440, mark that out, and then just plug in $2,000. And the difference between $2,000 and 3024 is 1024. So 1024 is the depreciation expense that I can use. So now if I subtract 1024 from 3024, that gives me $2,000. Then I get nothing for the 5th year, and then my book value stays the residual value of $2,000, and the accumulated depreciation does not go greater than the cost less the residual value. So the accumulated depreciation is $5,600 plus $3,360, the second year depreciation expense to give us $8,950, plus the 2016 to give us $1,076, plus 1024 to give us $12,000. So the difference between the straight line and the double declining balance method of depreciation is the straight line, you get $2,400 each year of its life. Well, this asset right here gets $5,600, well above the $2,400. So we can depreciate this one out with greater expense in the first years. The second year still gets greater than that than the straight line method of $3,360. But the third year gets less of 2016 versus $2,400 for the straight line. So, but it's still pretty close. And then the fourth year gets 1024 and the fifth year gets absolutely nothing. So if I know that this particular asset's going to be sold early or something to that effect, then this depreciation method may work better. But if I have an asset that seems to work really well and will continue in service even after its useful life, then the straight line method of depreciation is probably the better choice to go. Okay, the third one is the sum of the year's digits method. Again, this one is not in session. We don't use this. This will not be on any testing purposes, but I do want you to know that the sum of the year's digits method gives you the most depreciation in the first year and at least some in the last year. And it uses a fraction to, it's a 5-year asset. So you take 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, which gives you 15. That's the denominator. And then you start with the last year first, a 5. And it's 5 over 15, 4 over 15, 3 over 15, 2 over 15, and then 1 over 15. And then you take the... you take the depreciable amount on this one and take it times 5 divided by 15 to give you 4,000, and then subtract that from 14 to give you 10, and its book value will not go less than the salvage value, and its accumulated depreciation will not go greater than the cost less the salvage value. So in the double declining balance method, you get the most at the beginning and you get none at the end. And if you were to use the sum of the year's digits, you get a lot in the front and at least some in the end for your depreciation expense. But we no longer use that. That's no longer on the books. That takes us to the Maker's Edition, and it's been modified quite frequently. It ignores the residual, salvage, or trade-in value in the front and the end. Even if your test question says it has a residual value of $2,000, ignore it. You don't care. The residual value does not make any difference to you whatsoever. This is best for tax purposes. It assumes that the asset was purchased halfway through the year, and it begins with the double declining balance method and converts to the straight line method. As to where that happens, it's irrelevant to you, and you use a chart that's in the chapter. And this particular chart will identify if it's a 5-year asset, it'll go 6 years because it assumes it was purchased halfway through the first year, so it'll go 6 years. And this chart that's in under the Maker's Edition in your textbook begins with 20% for the first year, and then 32% for the second year, and then 19.20% for the third year, and the fourth year is 11.52%, as is the fifth year, and then the sixth year is 5.76%. And anyway, whatever the deal is, whatever cost recovery system that you use, all of the percentages in that particular cost recovery number of years adds up to 100%. So all of these will equal 100% right there. Okay, this particular problem is, I don't have a chart in front of me right now. So fortunately, I've already done the depreciation and put all of those values into place. I'm believing that a non-luxury car has a 5-year asset. It may be a 7-year asset, though. I'm really not sure. But let's just pretend right now that it's a 5-year asset. Those are the percentages that we would use. And it completely ignores the residual value, so it's $14,000. So we use $14,000 and take it times the first year percentage of 0.2 to give us $2,800. Then subtract $2,800 from $14,000 to give us a book value of $11,200. Okay, then we take $14,000 again times 32%. That equals $4,480. Subtract $4,480 from $11,200 to give us $6,720. Then we take $14,000 again times 0.1920 after you move the decimal point 2 places left. That gives us $2,688. Subtract that from $6,720 to give us $4,032. And then we take $14,000 again times 0.1152 after moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. That gives us $1,612.80. Subtract that from $4032 to give us $2419.20. Take 14,000 times 0.1152 again, which gives us the same amount, $1612.80. Subtract that from $2419.20 to give us $806.40 for the book value at the end of the 5th year. And then it goes into the 6th year, even though it's a 5-year asset. Take 14,000 times 0.0576 after you move the decimal point 2 places to the left. That gives you $806.40. Subtract that from $806.40. And it balances out to 0 for the book value at the end of the life of this particular asset. Accumulated depreciation just adds up the first year of $2,800, and so the first year is $2,800 plus the second year of $4,480 equals $7,280 plus $2,688 equals $9,968. Plus $1612.80 equals $11,580.80 plus $1612.80 equals $13,193.60 plus $806.40 gives you $14,000, the amount the cost of the asset. That's whenever it plays out completely. It will not go greater than the original cost of the asset for your accumulated depreciation. Okay, then the units of production method. A lot of manufacturing companies obviously would use this particular method. So if you have a machine that costs your company $52,300 and has an estimated salvage value of $4,000 with an expected life of 230,000 units, you are to prepare a depreciation schedule using the units of production method of depreciation. Use the following production schedule. So the depreciable amount is $48,300. How did I get that? I get it from the cost less the salvage value, and that will equal $48,300. Divide the depreciable amount of $48,300 by the total number of units that the machine is expected to produce in its lifetime, which gives you 21 cents per unit that it produces. So the annual depreciation is found by multiplying the number of units produced each year by the depreciation per unit. In this particular case right here, we have to make an assumption. And let's see if I included my assumption. I did not include my assumption. But let's say at the end of the year, we know that we produced 80,000 units. So that would be something I would have to give you. We produced 80,000 units times 21 cents a unit gives us our depreciation expense for year one of $16,800. The second year, we decreased the number of units, which is typical because you probably have more downtime on your machine, or you may not use that machine as much because you may have purchased other machines. But this year, we produced 50,000 units. And again, that's a given number times 21 cents a unit gives us depreciation expense for year two of $10,500. Then year three, we produced even less, which is 30,000 units. That's a given number that you can't calculate, that you just have to know that it was provided for you. And take that times 21 cents a unit. So this year we get to depreciate on this machine $6,300. Year four, we produced 40,000 units, which is a little more than last year. And again, that's a given. We don't know that. We can't calculate it. We just have to count the number of units we produce that year. Times 21 cents a unit gives us $8,400 of expense this year. And then year four, we produced 30,000 units. And this is the last year of life. It's a it doesn't say. So we've just produced 5 years. And this year we produced 30,000 units to give us $6,300 of depreciation. So that comes up with a total of the unit. The total amount of life is 230,000 units. And I add up all my depreciation expense, and the accumulated depreciation is $48,300, which will not go greater than the cost less the salvage value. So that's the depreciable amount. Okay, now I'm going to put this in a depreciation schedule. So we start with the cost of the asset of $52,300. The first year we produced 80,000 units. Okay, maybe that's where I got it. 80,000 units. And our depreciation expense was $16,800. So I subtract that from $52,300, and that equals $35,500. The next year I produced 50,000 units. And I take 52, and the depreciation expense is $10,500. So subtract that from $3,500 to equal $25,000. Okay, the third year I produced 30,000 units, and the depreciation expense is $6,300. So subtract $6,300 from $25 to equal $18,700. The fourth year I produced 40,000 units, and the depreciation expense is $8,400. So I subtract 84 from $18,700 to give me $10,300. And then the fifth year I produced 30,000 units, which is $6,300 per year. Subtract that from $10,300 to give me the book value that will not go less than the residual. The residual is $4,000. And the accumulated depreciation will not go greater than the cost less the salvage value of $4,000 to give me $48,300. Okay, so those, with the exception of the sum of the year's digits method, are the most commonly used types of depreciation. Okay, let's kind of walk through this. Next section, and this is from the handbook that I provided in your learning management system. And we have the first problem: from the following facts, complete a depreciation schedule using the straight line method. Well, it has 8 years. The estimated life is 8 years. So that is equal to 1 divided by 8, which is 0.125 or 12.5%. Okay. So 1 divided by 8 is equal to 0.125 or 12.5%. Okay, so I'm going to put 12.5% for the full 8 years. Okay, and the amount of depreciation is the depreciable amount, which is $56,000. That's the depreciable amount, and I'm going to divide that by 8 years. Equals $7,000. That's the depreciation expense. So it's the same each year. Put a $sign right there. Okay, so the book value is originally $66,000, and we did subtract out the residual of $10,000 to give us a depreciable amount of $56,000. Okay, what I'm going to do is take the book value, the original cost of the asset, and I'm going to subtract out $7,000. That's $66,000 minus $7,000. And that equals $59,000 for the book value at the end of the first year. Then 59,000 minus 7 equals 52,000. Then 52,000 minus 7 equals 45,000. Then 45,000 minus 7,000 equals 38,000. Then 38,000 minus 7,000 equals 31,000. And then 31,000 minus 7,000 equals 24,000. Okay, and then 24,000. Oh, I forgot my eighth year, minus $7,000 equals 17,000. And then 17,000 minus 7,000 gives me $10,000. And notice that my $10,000 does not go below the residual value of $10,000. Okay, and that was obviously 12.5% for the 7th and the 8th year as well. Your accumulated depreciation starts out with 7,000. Plus 7 is 14,000. Plus 7 is 21,000. Plus 7 is 28,000. Plus 7,000 is 35,000. 35 plus 7 is 42,000. 42 plus 7 is 49,000. And then 49,000 plus 7. Oh, I think I miscalculated. No, I didn't. 49 plus 7 is 56,000. Okay, so the depreciable amount, which is 66 minus 10, is equal to 56,000. The depreciable amount, the accumulated depreciation did not go greater than the cost less the salvage value, which is your depreciable amount of $56,000. Okay, this next one, prepare a depreciation schedule using the double declining balance method. It's for 5 years, thank goodness. So 1 divided by 5 for the straight line is equal to 20%. And with the double declining balance method, you double it, which is equal to 40%. So 40% is what we're going to use, and it ignores the residual value in the beginning, but it acknowledges it in the end. Keep that in mind as we're working through this particular problem. So we're going to start with $25,000. We're not going to find the depreciable amount because we're not going to pay attention to it until the very end of this problem. Okay, the rate of depreciation for each one of these is 40%. Okay, so we'll take 25,000 times 40%, and that will equal our depreciation expense. So I'm going to take 25,000 times 0.4, and that will equal $10,000 for the first year's depreciation expense. Okay, now I'm going to subtract 10 from 25 to give me $15,000 for the book value at the end of year 1. Then I'm going to take 15,000 times 40%. That's going to give you $6,000 for the depreciation expense for year 2. So now to get my book value, I'm going to subtract 6,000 from 15,000 to give me 9,000. Then I'm going to take 9,000 times 40%, 0.4, to give me 3,600. Then I'm going to subtract 3,600 from 9,000, and that'll give me $5,400 for the book value at the end of the third year. Then I'll take 54,000 times 40%, or 0.4, which will give me 2,160. Now whenever I subtract 2,160 from 5,400, that's going to give me 3,240. Okay. Notice that my residual value is $5,000. My book value has just dropped lower than my residual value. So I know that that is not the correct answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change, since I know my residual value is $5,000, I'm going to mark that out. Whoops, go away. Go away. I'm going to, since I know that my residual value is $5,000, I'm going to put $5,000 right there. And the difference between 5,000 and 5,400 is 400. So I'm going to mark out the depreciation expense at the end of year 4 and change that to 400. Then I will have zero amount of depreciation in the 5th year, and my book value will stay $5,000. Okay, then to calculate my accumulated depreciation thus far, I should have been doing that each year. My first year was 10,000. Plus 6 gives me 16,000. Plus 36 gives me 19,600. 19,600 plus 4 gives me 20,000. and then plus 0 gives me $20,000 for accumulated depreciation. And notice that my residual value did not go lower than $5,000. We don't recognize it in the beginning, but we do recognize a $5,000 in the end. The residual value is recognized in the end. And also, 25,000 minus 5,000 is equal to $20,000. Notice that your accumulated depreciation will not go greater than the depreciable amount of cost less the salvage value. So the hardest part of doing the double declining balance method is this fourth year, is making sure that you do not allow your book value to drop below the residual value. I like the double declining balance method, especially for an asset that may break down earlier than expected, or you may get rid of it or take it out of service before the end of the years, because you get the most expense during the first years. And you may not even have it, but it'll still be on your books until you completely depreciate it off of your books. Okay, here's number 14. And I don't have a book with me, so I'm going to have a little bit of a problem working on this one. Based upon my depreciation schedule, it only goes to 6 years, so that tells me that I probably have a 5-year cost recovery for a non-luxury car. So I would look that up in my chart, and it only wants us to do this for the first 2 years, but it's a 5-year asset, which means it assumes, by using the Maker's Edition, that we bought it halfway through the first year. So that's why it goes into the 6th year. And the chart, I have to use a chart. And remember also that the Maker's Edition does not recognize salvage value, residual value, use, or any of that information. So even if it said that it had a residual value of $1,000, who cares? It doesn't make any difference. Don't pay any attention to it at the beginning of the depreciation schedule or even at the end of the depreciation schedule. So the book value for this car is $7,000. Okay, we're going to take $7,000 and we're going to multiply that times the first year's rate for a 5-year asset. And I don't remember what that one is. I think it's 20%, but let's look up here at the chart because I had it included in the chart earlier. And it is. It's 20% or 0.32. 20% or 0.2. Okay, so I'll take that times 0.2. And then the second year is 32%. So I'll take 7,000 times 0.32%. And then it didn't ask, it's only asking for the first 2 years on this one, so I don't have to calculate the rest. But it would add up to 100%. And so I'd take, to find out my depreciation expense for the first year, I'd take 7,000 times 0.2, and that would equal $1,400. Then I would subtract 1,400 from 7,000, and that would give me a book value of $5,600 at the end of the first year. Then my second one, I take $7,000 times 32%. That equals $2,240. So I subtract 2,240 from 5,600. And that equals 3,360. Okay. I would put the accumulated depreciation so far for the first year of 1,400 plus the 2,240. That equals 3,640. And of course, you'd continue this process until you got to the It's a 5-year asset, but it would take it into the 6th year because it assumed that we bought it halfway through the assets, or halfway through the first year of that asset's life. Okay, then this next one, we're going to complete a units of production schedule based upon the following information. First of all, I'm going to determine what my depreciable amount is, and I'm going to subtract my residual value from the cost of the machine to give me $90,000. That's the depreciable amount. Okay, it is estimated that we have 100,000 units that this particular machine will produce. So what I'm going to do is take $90,000, the depreciable amount, and divide that by the estimated units that the machine will produce of 100,000. That should be 10 cents. Equals 90 cents per unit. Okay, and it does tell us that our actual production on this machine is, the first year we produced 60,000 units at 90 cents a piece. And let's see, so the first year is 60,000. Bring that right down here. So 60,000. Whoops. $60,000 times 90 cents a unit. And that equals the depreciation expense for the first year of $5,400, I believe. $54,000. Get the zeros right. Oh, and my book value is the cost of the asset, which is $94,000. Okay, so 94,000 minus 54,000 equals a book value of, go away, $40,000. And then for the second year is we produce only 15,000 at 90 cents per unit. So 15,000 equals 13,500. And so now I'm going to subtract 13,500 from 40,000. That equals $26,500. Okay, we only have the production for the first 2 years, so we would obviously continue that if we had that information. We'd continue including the amount of depreciation for the life of that unit. And then the book value would not go greater than the accumulated depreciation of $90,000. And then the first year we have 54,000 of accumulated depreciation. 54,000 plus 13,500 equals 67,500. It would keep going until we got to $90,000. Which would be the cost less the residual value of $90,000, which means I wrote that in the wrong location. So I'll mark that out. And the book value would go to no less than $4,000. Sorry about that. Okay, and so this gives you kind of an idea of how to walk through the steps of calculating depreciation and the expense for depreciation. And what the book value would be and what the accumulated depreciation would be if you were working on a depreciation schedule. That includes the straight line method of depreciation, which gives you the same amount of depreciation expense year after year with the same rate. The double declining balance method ignores the residual value in the beginning but acknowledges it in the end. It gives you the most depreciation in the first year, but in the last year you probably won't get any depreciation whatsoever. And its rate is based upon double that of the straight line method. And then the units of production method you have to know exactly how many units you're going to produce each year, but you take the unit cost of how much it costs to produce each unit times the number that you produce that year to get your depreciation expense. You start with the cost of the machine, and it works all the way down to the residual value for your book value, and your accumulated depreciation will go no greater than the depreciable amount, which is the cost, less your residual value. And it's for manufacturing companies or people who work with equipment and they produce items, and it's manufacturing for the most part. And then let's see, we have the Maker's Edition, which completely ignores the residual value 100%. Even if it's mentioned in the question that you have a residual value, who cares? It doesn't make any difference. It's based upon the cost of the asset, and you recover the entire amount over a certain period of time, and it's based upon a chart, and it changes on a regular basis, and it's best for tax purposes. This concludes Chapter 17.